Okay, in other news, I actually want to talk about some stuff that was kind of fun that happened recently, but, you know, the horrors of the world are what they are, so we will return to our regularly scheduled panicking here in a bit. But for now, I want to talk about a protest that I went to and just the general experience that I had. And this time, I have footage because I actually got my stuff recorded properly this time, and I don't have to rely on a picture of me staring at my phone on a gimbal from the Associated Press. So that's at least a positive. Anyway, this is a protest that was held at Piedmont Park, and there were a handful of speakers, but there was some stuff that I really liked about this. This protest was organized by a combination of 50501 and the Atlanta DSA, the Democratic Socialist of America. So I do want to talk about this experience and let you guys know. I got there late, but I got there in the meeting, in the middle of a speech that was being given by Gabriel Sanchez, who is one of the only people in Georgia in politics who can say, hey, he's an out-and-out socialist, but he is in politics.
A country that works for all of us, not just the people at the top. And that's what's been missing. For far too long, we've been talking about Trump, let him, be the center. It's time for working people to be the center instead.
Yes, sir! So I know it's hard to actually hear him because I'm working off of basically a phone's ambient mic, and that's it. So to summarize what this part of his speech was about, it was effectively him saying that we do a lot of Trump, talking about things that Trump has done, Elon has done, etc. But what we don't do a lot of is talking about working people. The spotlight is always on the politician. The spotlight is always on the guy at the top, instead of putting media attention where it should be, which is on the people who are making waves on the bottom. Because after all, there's many more of us. So instead of trying to find the one star that you can talk about in that sea of people, maybe sometimes you would do way better to have, that sea of people themselves be the body that is talked about.
It's time for us to show a true vision for working people, a true vision to actually make America great for the first time, honestly.
I did like the dig of, hey, maybe we should make America great for the first time, because the Make America Great Again doesn't make any sense if you don't think America was ever truly the great nation that it's always strived to be. At least it says it has strived to be.
And to make it so that we can stop this affordable housing crisis that is bearing down on our communities, whether you're an owner or a renter. We have these huge corporations coming out, buying up all this property and making it unaffordable for the rest of us by jacking up all the prices. We have corporate landlords using AI software to artificially increase rents to make it so that Atlanta is the most inflated housing market in the entire country. Yep. I did introduce legislation to ban that practice, and it did get a hearing, so we'll see if we get a vote next year.
So we'll see if we can actually get that taken care of. But I don't want to focus just on Gabriel. There were other speakers here that spoke, but there was one thing that was done at this protest that I found fascinating, that I really, really liked. And I don't think this is generally done at many rallies, protests, etc. Like, this was closer to a discussion and less of a protest in front of something, though you still had all of the signs and everything that you would see at a normal protest. But here, I want to show you something that happened after this guy. I don't want to play too much of the speech. It's not super important, but the long and short of it is this guy here is a member of a commission that is effectively attempting to be a union to legislate or try to legislate against Georgia Power. Georgia Power has a monopoly here in the area, Southern Company does, and nobody can really get electricity from anybody but them. So when Georgia Power charges exorbitant prices, y'all remember me showing you my bills. I was paying like $440 a month for power last year. When Georgia starts hiking up all of our prices, we don't have an option but to pay. So this guy is effectively one of the people who is trying to make sure that we have options to fight against that kind of shit. But the interesting part was here.
Questions.
So what we're going to do is we're going to break out into groups of like 10 to 15 people max and talk through some of these discussion questions, and then we'll reconvene to hear a couple more speeches. But so first, just fan out. We're going to talk with each other and get organized for the next about 20 minutes, and then we'll come back.
So I know it's hard to hear because the volume is low, because again, we're taking volume from a live stream from a phone, but what he is saying is every single person in this group of about 200, 250 people, it doesn't seem like that because I'm in the crowd, near the front of the crowd, as close as I could get with my camera at the time. Bear in mind, I had a tripod and I wasn't about to like push through a bunch of people and be like, hey, I'm more important than you, tripod coming through. That's just not what I'm going to do. So what he's suggesting is that everybody at the protest / rally all break off into smaller groups with a representative from the organizations, 50501 and DSA, and I don't remember if Indivisible was in charge here as well, but I could be wrong. For people who were at the event, please correct me if I'm wrong. But people who were representatives of those organizations had questions on a sheet of paper, and they would go through those questions with each of us and then have us talk about possible solutions to the problems presented in just on those papers. And I thought that was fascinating because usually you have there's a handful of kinds of protests, but the ones that come to mind mostly are marches, ones where you go from one location to another location, and there's usually a lot of chanting, a lot of yelling. Gio Burdett says, go lefties, thank you for resubscribing. I greatly appreciate it. There are stand-in-place ones, which is like the one in Marjorie Taylor Greene, where there is a location that you need to be at from the beginning, and you are not marching through a city, demonstrating for the whole city, so much as you are staying in a location and letting your voice be known. This can obstruct traffic, or it cannot obstruct traffic. It just depends on the mechanics of that protest. And then there are ones like this, which are kind of a hybrid between a protest and a rally, where there's a lot of speakers that will get on megaphone, but you still have all of the standing around chanting and stuff that you have normally. In fact, actually, that's how I found where this was. Piedmont Park is a huge fucking place, and I could not figure out where everybody at the protest was, so I literally just had to listen until I heard the chanting, and that's when I knew that I was getting close enough to the protest. And I just followed my ear to get there.
Find the nearest person.
Over here, y'all. I'm Chris. I too do this for my kids.
Okay, so there's me. So what I did is oh wow, I'm limping? Why was I limping? What the hell happened to me? I guess Saki's right, I do walk with a limp. I just never notice it. Anyway, so what I did is I went around and asked whichever group that I was going to be in if they would be okay with me having a camera, bringing a camera over to the location. And then I grabbed my camera and took it to the location after I had gotten consent of the party involved. Because there are some people who go to these events who might possibly risk their jobs if they are seen at these events. So it's usually a good idea to ask the people around to make sure that you do not put anybody at risk who does not consent to being at risk. And then this is us gathering our group of about 15-ish people.
Introduce yourself, name, if you're a part of any organization.
My name is Jeff. I live in the... What else are we saying about ourselves?
If you're a part of any of the organizations.
I am not part of any of the organizations, but I'm out. This is the third protest I've been to so far, and I do it for my kids.
Okay, so again, volume is low, and if Guitar Rocker is being a saint and is raising the volume of these areas so that they're easier to hear, then that's fantastic. But if they can't, then I'll go ahead and point out what is being said. This is a man named Jeff. He has gone to several protests, and he does it for his kids. That's what it is to him. This is a way for him to advocate for his kids and their future.
Over here, y'all. I'm Chris. I too do this for my kids. I've been volunteering with 5051. Also joining the board of directors with Pocketbook Brigade in Tucker, Georgia, for some local action there. We've organized a couple.
I also didn't point the camera at every person who was speaking all the time.
Yeah, I could not.
It felt
sleep
kind
at
of
night
rude. I need to
if,
get better about just
I
doing
wasn't
that.
Something right now.
Jordan, part of DSA.
Jana, also kind of part of DSA.
I'm Chris. I'm a live streamer by trade. I talk about politics, so I'm here because this shit's important to me. I made a pivot like 6 years ago and things kept on getting worse and worse and worse, and here I am.
And that's the best I can describe myself as.
It's probably easier to tell you what organizations I'm not in. I'm in DSA, 5051, Indivisible, a lot of them around here. Just like what you said, it's really hard to not do anything, especially with how things have been escalating recently. It's very scary. Someone else wants to
I'm Erin. I'm a founding member of Fired But Fighting. We're an organization of terminated CDC employees.
Now, this woman is fascinating. So she is a member of Fired But Fighting. Fired But Fighting is a group, and she just said it, but again, it's hard to hear sometimes. Fired But Fighting is a group of people who used to be part of the CDC. These are people who used to be part of Atlanta's Center for Disease Control and were fired because of Trump. Because Trump decided that we don't need fucking experts and started getting rid of members of the CDC. Now, why did he do this? I don't know. I guess the best way I could describe it is he's a megalomaniacal idiot. Well, they are a network of former CDC professionals, scientists, communicators, and policy analysts, public health experts who are standing together to demand transparency, accountability, and justice. They are seeking out not just for themselves, but the future of public service and the protection of public health. Ninja says, I wonder how many of them didn't find you when they looked you up. Is it because I introduced myself as Chris instead of Suris? That's kind of somewhat deliberate because, yes, these are a thing that I do for my job, but no, I'm not traveling as a form of self-advertisement. Like, I could very well just bring a bunch of business cards and start advertising myself everywhere in Atlanta, but I feel like that would be really, really shitty to do, especially when, again, the focus on stuff like this is not supposed to be on, me. But maybe at least the business card angle would be helpful for future correspondence. Maybe that's something I need to get set up. I know in the past, Pernia made me a really cool business card for Sunset City, so maybe there's an avenue there as well that could be helpful. I'll check with her and see if that's something that she'd be willing to help out again. A middle ground might be a press pass for yourself. Maybe. I'm very inexperienced with the on the ground, in person, on camera thing. I am far more used to my in office pre-researched thing.
What is it called again?
Fired But Fighting.
Fired But Fighting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That could be a big deal down Tucker.
Yeah.
You're in Tucker. Okay. So you've been to our events on the business.
Robbie said I could laser up some aluminum business cards. That would be cool, but that sounds very expensive.
For all the organizations that are not already connected, please.
And I no longer have a P.O. box because I couldn't afford to renew one, so that would also make things difficult in that regard.
They're in sections, so I'm just going to read the full section, and then we can just pick a question to talk about.
Sure.
So the first section is, the Trump administration is abducting and deporting immigrants, including lawful residents, and targeting people for political speech. How have the stories of Mahmoud Khalil and Kilmar Abrego Garcia affected you? What are the implications of these events for the rights of all people? And what can we do to fight back? Anyone want to take that?
I'll go ahead and take that one. So for me, I have a few friends who are here on green cards. And those friends years ago gave me their concerns that something like this might happen, and I kind of ignored it because I said, statistically, it's not likely to happen to you. I understand your concern, but it's not that big. As these things have been getting more and more media attention, though, I feel like it's getting to be more and more of a problem, especially because we're not just deporting anymore. We are also, I think the term was, it's not called resigning, but there's a specific...
It's called renditioning past me. The term is renditioning.
Specific word.
Kidnapping.
Trafficking.
There's a more specific word that specifically means when you take a political opponent and you move them out because you are worried about being politically expedient for them to not be in your area. It's usually done with terrorists, but that's not what we are seeing right now. We are seeing the terrorist label thrown on to people whether or not they deserve it without due process. That's terrifying. Also, as somebody who is dating somebody who is Native American, and Trump recently putting out an executive order saying that, whether or not you've been born on U.S. soil, that's not really going to be what we look at for U.S. citizenship anymore. Things like this start getting more and more terrifying, and it starts feeling like we need to be doing more to stop it.
So, yeah, I mean, if I have, my daughter has a friend, and her parents are terrified. They are not U.S. citizens, but they're terrified, and my heart breaks because I think about my daughter and her sweet friend and their family and how this has affected them. What I've done, I went and printed the Know Your Rights flyers.
The little red ones?
Not the red cards, but similar. There's at least 3 or 4 different versions of them out there.
Cool.
And we baked like a couple of loaves of bread, and we sent that to their family. And I've reached out several times, and I'm like, you let me know, and I'll show up because this isn't okay. I'm trying to find out. I don't know that I have the energy or the organization skill to put together like an anti-ICE force, but I'm aware of one in Gwinnett County, and I'm trying to be a little more active there. So to answer that part of it, what can we do? If you see ICE or DHS or IRS, use the Waze app, and you can mark on the Waze app, icy roads.
This was interesting information to me. I did not know that people had started using code for this stuff, and that is fantastic. So yeah, if you have Waze or any of those other GPS apps, and you know that pieces of shit are doing things in your area, mark as icy roads. Mark as icy roads. That will let people know, who are in the know at least, that that is an area that they need to go to in order to film, in order to keep those people accountable, or if they are somebody who is in danger, it is a place that they need to avoid.
That tells other people
But that's where they are right now.
that something's happening there. So you either avoid that area, or if you're like me and you have all this white cis privilege, you can show up and you can make sure that, hey, you can't do that. Hey, you don't have to talk to them. Hey, you don't have to let them in.
Yeah, if you have less of a chance of something bad happening to you personally, you use that. There's a, not to interject, but there's a list called, I think it's called the Good Trouble Checklist. And it's about 28 different things that you can do depending on what privilege you have, what position of power you have, where you can be doing things right now that help out. And one of the things, like you mentioned there, was, hey, if you're in a position where you're less likely to get in trouble with the police, utilize it.
This is what I was referring to there, by the way, for anybody who does not know. This is the Good Trouble Checklist. It is a checklist of things that you can do depending on where you are and how you are positioned in order to make sure that the world does not fall into chaos around you, effectively. Bonbon says, girl, what time is it for you? It is 3 in the morning for me, but I am covering a protest that I went to, protest/rally. And I am also seeking donos because I'm going to be in Florida very soon for Marcy Rankin's case, where she is going to be going up against the Florida the Florida judiciary in Leon County, Tallahassee, because they think that trans people need to be arrested for going into the bathroom. So that's going to be fun. And I would like to be there. So we've raised enough of the hotel costs. Now we just need the food and gas costs. Token White Dude says, and you also woke up late? Yeah, I did wake up late. I woke up 2 hours late. And then I also went out when I probably shouldn't have to go get food at Costco. And also went to the card shop for like 10 minutes, which I also probably shouldn't have done. But I got to drop Saki off there so she could go play Knights of the Gathering. So nothing wrong with there. Nothing wrong with there. Bonbon says, I'm just waiting for the bus to college. Fair enough. But yeah, the good trouble checklist. If you are in proximity to the wheels of harm or in an organization that is capitulating to harm, what are the ways you can throw sand in the gears and slow the machines down? If you are outside of those wheels but you have privilege, how can you use it? This is the kind of stuff. Pay attention to your doom-scrolling human connection ratios. Remember that human connection can happen via texting, phone calls, Zoom, etc. This is a checklist of things to do to take care of yourself, take care of your mental, and also gum up the government doing tyrannical bullshit. I've talked about it on a video. I have shouted it out many times. I highly recommend reading over the Good Trouble Checklist if you have not already. Anyway.
We're all under significant danger. I don't care what your racial background is or what your politics are. If you're considered a threat, it doesn't make any difference if you were the only person in the North American continent one time. You're under threat of being thrown out. And they're not identifying themselves. ICE is showing up.
Yeah, when they take away due process, it's not like anything protects you anymore.
No, nothing. They can come and get in.
So I'm willing to put myself in that danger, especially if it's happening locally, because I've decided for myself, and my family objects because they're like, we need you. But if I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down with a fight on your phone. Get an app, get Substack or something, and set it so that you can quickly go live. If you go live, if you record it on your phone, they can confiscate your phone. But if you can go live on your phone while some kind of act...
This is very good advice here. If you are in a position where something bad or shitty is happening around you, and it's your police, ICE, what have you, the best thing you can do is go live on a platform, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, doesn't matter, but ideally one where the live VOD is going to be available for people to see going forward. Because if you record something, the police can get rid of the recording on your phone. They can mess that up. But if you are live streaming, it's a lot harder. Because now that data is in the hands of Meta, YouTube, Twitch, whomever happens to have it. And that will be a recording that can be used by you just in case. And remember, Georgia's a one-party consent state, so if you're recording, you're consenting. Anyway.
...is happening, that can go out. You can talk to your friends and say, look, you see my sub, if I suddenly go live, that means shit's going down.
That means something's happened.
Right, and you need to pay attention or try to download that evidence and keep track of that and then distribute it to media.
Makes sense. When we were at the Marjorie Taylor Greene protest, anytime the police went up to a vehicle, everybody's cameras came out and just aimed at them, and just everybody started going, hey buddy, what you doing? What you doing, friendo?
You want to have the biggest advantage we have is having a big group.
Circle's getting bigger.
Yeah.
Having people together. If you have someone else with you, the cops or whoever else is a lot less likely to start. That's the big reason all these protests, all these marches have been big. We want a lot of people around. It's a lot harder to fuck with a big group who can actually do something.
Or a group of people that generates confidence as well.
Exactly.
So the people who are like, I don't know, but they see a group of people, they can be more comfortable in a large group.
Exactly.
There is a group of people that have something.
So my microphone was not able to pick her up. So I'm skipping ahead, not because I don't want to hear what she's saying, but because I cannot hear her now, and I could barely hear her at the event. So we do.
They can't complain to the government using like situations they do have rights. They don't know that, and they don't know that they can. They have. The big one for me is that illegal immigration and illegal immigrants are one of the most commonly exploited types of workers. They have very few rights, and even if they do have rights, they don't know that, and they don't know that they can object to the things that their bosses are doing. They're the ones who end up working in fields that are using like illegal pesticides. They're forced to work there because they have no other choice. That's the way they make money. And they can't complain to the government.
Because that would be reporting themselves.
Exactly.
So I don't want to focus too terribly much here either, only because we're at 25 minutes. How's it going, Orla? I did just want to show this idea that I really, really liked of break into these smaller groups and have discussions about things that are important to you. I have mentioned it before, and I'll say it again, and they even mentioned this at the protest. Protesting is not a solution. Protesting does not do anything. Protesting doesn't do anything about the current problem. Protesting gets you in contact with people who are politically activated, are politically motivated, are willing to go out there and do the work, and they can help guide you on ways that you can get work done as well. That is the purpose of political protesting. You communicate that there is a problem for the media to see, for a workforce to see. But the most important thing is that it gets human beings together and organized, which is a very, very difficult thing to do most of the time. All right, now, after we were done with the group activities, there was another speaker here.
My name is Matthew Nursey. I'm an organizer with the...
Apologies for your ears that just got hurt. My ears just got hurt as well. The megaphone and my microphone were not friends at all.
Housing Justice League. I'm also a proud card-carrying member of Atlanta DSA. And at Housing Justice League, we fight against displacement and gentrification. And we believe in the not-so-radical idea that housing is a human right and not a commodity. Georgia is ground zero for the corporate landlord takeover of large outside investors coming in, engaging in monopolistic practices, and purchasing all the single and multi-family homes. Boo! In Metro Atlanta, a quarter of all the single-family and rental homes are owned by corporate landlords. We don't even know what...
Out. Okay, I'm gonna save your ears from more of that, and I sincerely hope Guitar Rocker hears this part of the video and can tone him down at that point. But he's basically talking about the fact that housing is treated as a commodity, and as a result, we are all kind of fucked because we don't really have a choice but to participate in the housing market. So let's all be part of an organized effort to change the way our housing market is built.
His death will not be in vain.
Ow. Yep. It's everything with a megaphone. Everything with a megaphone. Okay, this is Kelsey Bond. And they are actually running as well for an office in Atlanta. Let me see if maybe their mic doesn't hurt the ears.
Organize! When are we gonna do it? Now!
Ow! Nope. Everything hurts. Everything is pain. Okay, cool. Everything with the megaphone and everything with my mic on my camera is awful. All of it. All of it's bad. So, again, it's not that I'm trying to skip the things that any of these speakers have said. The things they've said are great. This was Zach here. He also made some points about how the cool thing about having a government is it only really works with the consent of the governed. You get enough people together, and they don't consent to being governed the way that they are, then you have a revolution. But again, megaphone. So I'm going to skip to the post area of here, where we had a more private conversation. Oh, also, this guy right here. This is the only cop presence that we had to deal with. Thankfully. There he is, sauntering his way up. There's a couple of police cars over here. And as he's getting up, he gets talked to by one of the representatives, or a couple of the representatives, and then slinks away. Which is good. I am happy. Like, I'm happy that we didn't have to deal with the police patrolling around the way that they did during the Marjorie Taylor Greene protest. That, I'm at least somewhat thankful for. Let me see if this is audible.
Shape and form.
Right. So, what I think what makes a republic function is accountability between community and the representatives, right? And in order, like, what makes that accountability is elections in which knocking on doors and going to community events is how you win, right? And we don't have that, so we don't have a democracy. We don't have a republic.
That's what we've been trying to focus on a bit over in the Paulding County Democrats.
Is knocking on doors and going to community events, right?
Yeah.
But right now, if you want to get in the House, which the federal government's got all the power, like, that's not a viable option. You need millions of dollars in radio ads to get name recognition, right? So what I want to do is, and actually the very first amendment that ever passed Congress was to limit people representatives at 50,000 Okay, so we're at 750,000 now. So we're 15 times what the founding fathers thought was reasonable. It's really bad, right? Denmark is the highest rated democracy in the world. They have 33,000 people per representative, right? So the thing is it's still up for application. The last amendment we passed was actually the second amendment. The last amendment we ratified was actually the second amendment that ever passed Congress.
So the point that he's getting at here, which is I think is a very important one, is that in our current system, we have 750,000 people to one representative on average, which means a representative can hardly be a voice for the people they are supposed to represent. We quite literally have taxation without representation. Because as of right now, we have so many people that a representative is supposed to represent, they have no real way of doing so, not at that scale. You need to have something with far more reps in order to actually have an accurate idea of who needs to be represented in which counties and where. And unfortunately, as of this moment, our current system is a bunch of reps who cannot ever hear every issue that is brought to their doorstep because there are too many voices and only so many hours in a day.
Right? The first one was the only of the original 12 that never got ratified. So what I want to push you to is ratify that amendment and massively expand Congress, right? But Congress has two problems. We don't have enough representatives to be representative of the community, but we have too many representatives to be functional. You put 435 people in a room and ask them where to go to lunch. Right. And nobody's eating, right? So,
yeah.
So and we have this horrible top-down system in Congress, right? Because they elect their leadership, but that leadership has so much power over the base representative that they're not able to really freely elect them. Basically, they've got a gun to the back of their head when they're voting. And trust me, many times they've used that gun, right? Like, there have been representatives that have been massively screwed by the party for not voting for who they wanted. So what I want to do is create a bottom-up system in Congress. So I want to build this to show that you can take thousands of people and build meaningful legislation.
So these ideas are wonderful, and it is, not to speak for Zach, but in lieu of time, the idea is effectively that our current system does not work. A new system needs to be brought in that has more representatives. Those representatives need to be, for lack of a better word, tiered and flip-flop from what we have right now. What we have right now is person at the top of your reps says how a vote needs to go, and then the representatives vote down the party line. You've seen that 12 billion times. Anytime any of us on the political side of YouTube have talked about a bill that was passed, it's always, almost always, outside of rhinos and dinos, been down the party line. And that happens, typically, because you have people who are being told how to vote from the top down. Instead, having a system where for every 1,000 people, they have one representative. And then that body of representatives communicates those distilled ideas from those people up to another representative. and those representatives then are the ones that vote, you, instead of having a top-down system of voting for shit, you have a bottom-up system of voting for shit. And if I got that wrong, if I am lucky enough and Zach watched this video, then he can correct me and I can bring him on for an interview or something to set the record straight on there. But that is the idea that I got from there. Now, my one point of contention that I had, and I talked to him about this at the event, was that I believe that you need to do a shotgun approach when it comes to these kind of reforms. You simultaneously have to work within the broken system to do what you can, and then at the same time, you need to make sure that within that broken system, you are doing what you can for everybody, while also building a replacement system, or in this case, a heavily, heavily, heavily modified version of the current system to make sure that people are going to be taken care of in the future. You use the broken system while you can to get as much done as you can. If I were to use an analogy of my approach, it's recognizing that you can't finish the project because you have a broken hammer. But while you are on the job site, using whatever tools you have access to push in that nail, while you have a hammer on order coming in. It is not the most elegant solution. It's not the greatest solution. But it is the solution that makes the most sense to me in a realistic situation. You can get things done way better and more efficiently once you have all the proper tools. But if you only wait until you have all the proper tools, you may end up never getting anything done. But that said, that is about everything that I was able to cover at this event, aside from my long walk. Jesus, this was long.
74%?
This is my long walk through Piedmont Park in order to get back to my car. If you want to hear me breathe heavily throughout this whole thing, I don't think you want to.
Scoot.
But there's all kinds of me walking content, if that's what you want to see. Like, I'm just clicking forward 30 seconds at a time, so you can see exactly how big this park is and how much walking you have to do to get from one end to another. Although, ignore when I got stuck staring at a squirrel. Let me see, where is that? There, yeah, ignore when I just sat here following a squirrel. 1 minute of this is just me following a squirrel. I don't know if that helps. Robbie, thank you for redeeming your points for an wow. But yeah, I was just following a squirrel. Anyway, yeah, nothing else really of note in here, aside from me walking through more and more of the park and seeing more and more of it on my way back to the car. Axel says, "Man, I wonder if he's autistic." Why do you say that? Squirrel. Tell us about the squirrel? That the squirrel was cute. He let me get within like 5 feet of him. It was fucking great. Anyway, that's it for that. I just wanted to take you guys through my experience at this political event. I am going to be going to more. In fact, May 8th, I am going to be in Leon County, Tallahassee, because Marcy Renton is going to be having her first day in court. For those who don't remember, she is the woman who was arrested in Florida for going to the Capitol and going to the restroom in the women's restroom. So that's a shitty situation. But yeah, her name is Marcy Renton. I am going to be there doing what I can, even if most of what I am able to do is document and be a first-party voice for all of you who are not able to attend. That said, hopefully that whole traveling situation ends up doing well. If you want to help support me getting there and getting back safely, then please hit !dono and give a direct donation to the channel. If you want to see me do more on-the-ground work, basically, then every single dollar that you guys send me is paying for food and gas effectively so that I can do more of that kind of content, because it does end up getting expensive, especially when it's going to a whole fucking different state, which is what's going to be having to happen. That said, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you for being here. I am hiccuping. I am so sorry. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't already. And very, very important thing. Let me just go ahead and say, if you have not, there we go. That's the one. If you have not checked me out on Blue Sky, please consider doing so. Also, please follow my Magic the Gathering channel where I talk about one of my favorite card games. Support me on Patreon if you want to be in the credits rolls of these videos, and also you want to help me over the long term. I also have a fourth wall where you can support me directly by picking up a channel playmat. And, of course, I am streaming Mondays through Thursday. And also subscribe to this channel. Okay, bye-bye. Insert into video tagline here. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I really could not do any of this without all of you. Those of you watching, and especially those of you who support me on Patreon. I wanted to go ahead and take a minute to thank all of you who do that, because with YouTube being what it is these days, I really cannot do this full-time without the support from each and every one of you. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Tales of Atonement, Nixie Chan, Kiri Artemis, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Leela Ururaka, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fire Shard. Thank you so very much. But since you're here, why not go ahead and try watching another one? There should be one that's on the screen right now. And if you are a patron of mine, I wanted to go ahead and thank you again for all of your support. There is still a video you could press, though, if you'd like. I would appreciate it just a little bit.